Hi, Abby. This is David. I thought I would answer via video. It's easier and faster, and this way I can answer all your questions, and you can decide what parts of it you do or don't like. I apologize. I'm a little under the weather, and doing an at-home sick day, so that's why I look like poop. But anyways, let me go to your questions. And this is the first time I've seen the questions, so these are my honest, earnest reactions. Uh, what's your least What's your least favorite part about your job? What's your favorite? Oh, that's interesting. I would say my favorite is right now. So I just started a new job with Advance, and I think my favorite part is actually working with my new colleagues and the opportunity to work with really interesting and smart people. Whenever you feel like you're working with people who are really smart and you're the least talented in the room, you're actually in a really good place. Um, My least favorite part right now, just because of where I'm at in life, travel is not as much fun as it used to be. I used to really enjoy the fact that because of different things that I did, I would go to different places, and right now I kind of am enjoying staying at home. But Advance is based in New York, so I find myself going to New York a little bit more than I used to. After reading your blog, it seems that your dad inspires you a lot. Did he approve of journalism more than stand-up comedy? Wow, you really did your research. Uh, my dad does approve of journalism more than stand-up comedy. Maybe you read the story about when I was a kid and I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And he said something along the lines of, to do that, I must have been like 7 or something. I don't remember. You have to learn to be an effective communicator, and I can remember him saying effective communicator. Um, I do think when I first started going to journalism, he was nervous. I mean, my dad was a lawyer, and I think he kind of, wanted me to be in that lawyerly class of, I don't know what you'd call that, professional services. And so I think, all parents are nervous for their kids, but I think going into journalism made my parents, nervous because it's not always a great profession. But I think that became a technology reporter my dad liked, and he followed me along once I became a technology reporter for Wired because he read Wired. So once I started writing for Wired, he like got more into it because he was a tech guy, and he read Wired. And after that, my parents have been very supportive. What does he think of what you're doing now? So yeah, again, my parents are incredibly supportive, and I think my mom doesn't always understand what I'm doing. Um, to my mom, I say that I love my parents. Al Jazeera AJ Plus was like my first real job because it was like a real company, whereas Circa and Spot Us and other things weren't like known companies. So it was kind of like she's like, "Oh, this is like a real job," and I'd always be like, "I've had real jobs, mom." Uh, but my dad kind of gets it a little bit more, and my dad reads my blog, and so he kind of understands the sort of like intellectual artistic statements that I think I'm making in my work. I think my mom less so, but don't get me wrong, she's very supportive. What do you to Al Jazeera and AJ Plus from Circa? I think the main two things were one, I'm fascinated by video. I think video is an effective means of communication, right? And increasingly so. In fact, this last year, I think, sort of proved that. And but I'm really interested in what video looks like after television, and that's what AJ Plus was all about. And I think I just wanted to experiment in that space. And again, it's always good to work with really smart and talented people. And the AJ Plus office in San Francisco has really great people. I really enjoyed working there. And sort of for me though, it was about like exploring this concept of like video in social spaces, like this idea again of platform intelligence. I've also written about it in that way other places, and I got to do that at AJ Plus for the last year, and I had a blast doing so. You mentioned Jay Rosen and Jeff Jarvis on your blog, but have you worked with anyone else or looked up to someone who really inspired you in your field? Yes, a lot. In fact, I should maybe go back because I mentioned them, but there are so many people that like I was really lucky that when I was younger, and I still think this is the case, that like journalism is it's still an apprenticeship model, and you can really open yourself up to older, wiser journalists of all stripes, and they'll teach you something. So Dan Gilmore is another one who I've learned from. And it's all over, right? I mean, I think of Geneva Overholzer, who is now retired, but she's amazing and was really formative on my thinking as well when I was younger. And it's sad to say, I don't know, Dory Maynard, who passed away this year, I think it was this year, was also, I mean, I owe a lot to so many different people that it's like almost unfair to start naming. Um, but uh, in fact, I believe your professor, Gary Kebbel, if Gary is one of your professors, was also very formative to me when I was younger. Um, Journalists, and I try and do the same, but journalists have older journalists were very kind to me, and very giving and sort of responsive to my curiosities and wanting to talk to me. And again, I try and do the same now. Is biking the only thing you do in your downtime, and is it your only break from technology? Well, so again, kudos on all the research. So now I probably have two things that I do in my downtime, and actually I think I've increased my downtime, and I'll explain why. One is I garden. I like to grow things. It's hard in California right now because of the drought. I've actually not been watering. Don't worry, I haven't been watering. But I got into gardening in the last few years, more so than biking. Um, and I have a son. I have a 2-year-old kid. So the last 2 years, especially the last year, the first year less so if I'm honest, but this last year, the first year of his life I was with Circa, and this last year I was with AJ Plus, and AJ Plus is a little bit more 9 to 5. And when I come home, I am with him, and on the weekends I'm with him. In fact, he just got home, so after this I'm gonna go down and hang out with him. And I find it to be a fantastic way to unplug. It's just to spend time with a 2-year-old. Um, how is the Alpha Group different from what you were doing at AJ Plus? In some respects, there is some similarity to the idea again of like Skunkworks. Um, AJ Plus was specifically about video and like thinking about how video translates to different platforms. Alpha Group might be even more broad, and it's not even video; it's like whatever, right? I mean, Alpha Group is going to be true Skunkworks. Like we're gonna maybe make something on top of Slack, maybe make something on top of Reddit, maybe make something that is its own website. At this point it's really early stages, but um, I think the nature of it is that we are not necessarily content producers. We might end up making something that requires content producers, but the Alpha Group is not itself an editorial organization, whereas AJ Plus is an editorial organization that experiments with video. Hopefully that distinction makes sense. Um, you've made millions of legs, Buzz. What's your next pinnacle of success? I get that. Um, you know, so the legs Buzz is saying for well, you're watching this video, so you know what it means. For me, success, and I've written some things about this, so maybe you've come across it, but again, I apologize for being sick. For me, the projects that I work on, I want to be able to say have some kind of statement, some kind of like artistic statement. Again, artistic is a strange phrase for it, but like I'm trying to make a comment that I hope other people recognize, and it pushes the conversation forward about what it is that journalism is or isn't, or content is or isn't, and how it looks and feels in different spaces. Um, like if I really wanted to create a copycat website of BuzzFeed, or I don't know why BuzzFeed, but like I could do that, right? Like we could make a Fusion 2, we could make a BuzzFeed 2, right? It might not be as good, might require a lot of capital, right? But even if I did that successfully, it would be like, well, why? Why did we do that? Like to me, if you're gonna work on something new, it has to say something, and hopefully you feel good about that, that whatever it is that it says. Um, besides, this is the last question. Besides becoming comic booky, where else do you see communication going in the future? So the comic booky thing is a reference to this idea of the melding of image and text, right? Which we're seeing in videos like AJ Plus Now This News, GIFs, um, you're seeing more illustrations in general, right? So and emojis is a strange kind of comic, right? I mean, you can literally tell stories with emojis, or people try to. Again, I always say this, that technology companies are media companies, and media companies are becoming technology companies. I think there's a future where they're indistinguishable from each other, where Netflix is also a place where you get news, right? I know that the CEO sort of said, why, we don't want to do that. But what he was referring to was broadcast, right? Like, why are we going to do a news anchor thing, right? Like, take the communication style of that you see on broadcast news and put it to Netflix. Like, we do things differently. We do House of Cards, right? We do Orange is the New Black. Whatever news is going to be like on Netflix, it's going to be like for Netflix. But there is that moment, right? So again, technology companies becoming media companies becoming technology companies. There's a point where they're indistinguishable, where we stop referring to them as one or the other. I don't know when that is, or what. I'm really fascinated with the VR. Again, I wouldn't like say that that's like the future. It is a future. I think whenever people talk about the future, it's like you can only talk about various futures, right? Like small segments of futures. I do think VR is going to be part of the future of communication, right? Um, it'll be really interesting to see what that looks like combined with social, right? Social VR spaces. Um, yeah, I mean, and in the end, I just think it's actually media content storytelling is very healthy, very strong. So hopefully that answers all your questions. If you have more, just send me an email, and yeah, you will.